and foreclosures. This is going to be CCP 580e. This is the short sale law. This is the law that most realtors are telling their sellers takes care of everything. And when used properly, it is a very good law. We're going to talk about what it does, how it protects you from the bank and owing the bank money after a short sale, what it does with respect to taxes. And then we're also going to take a look at how I would leverage it for credit as an attorney if I were working with you. And then finally, we're going to talk to you. I already did a video on protecting your assets. But one of the biggest parts of this law that I don't think anyone is telling anyone is the fraud provision. And I'm going to say at the end, so many people over the years I talked to, some called and were clients, but it was more just talking. So many people told me that they did their short sale and they basically committed fraud. They lied about their assets. They made up a hardship so they could get out of the deals. Now, sometimes this may be biting them with zombie loans, but honestly, I haven't heard all that much about it recently. I know back then at the time, a few people were being chased down after doing that with people. They called me as a lawyer. I couldn't do anything for them that I recall. Also, I will say one of the more interesting things were the people I talked to who had, and it happened with people who were, especially lenders in the beginning, they would make themselves seem really strong on their applications. And they were quite concerned about doing a short sale. So that's why they talked to me. And they're like, I don't want to show the bank my assets to create a hardship, because they could realize maybe I wasn't as strong as I said I was back then. And so for those people, we did loan workouts where we tried to leverage the law, and back then there was lender liability because they were screwing up on their servicing and their collections, because these loans, it was such a crazy time that they weren't doing their due diligence. And so some of our clients got to stay in their properties for a very long time. Some of our clients and didn't get to do the short sale, but they might have stayed there 2 or 3 years while we were fighting these banks, because they had me do the requests and the accountings and demand these things from the banks, and they couldn't produce it, and the banks were scared to do anything. So sometimes we had a client stay in his property for 10 years. We had a 3s and 5s, and other times we were able. I think I would say more often they in those cases they did a deed in lieu without us showing assets rather than a short sale. But I recall some people presenting very minimal short sale packages and not having to show all their assets and getting the short sales approved, because we were leveraging the law and they were getting good deals. Like, it was important for us to show them and their investor why they should do this now rather than wait till later. And because I was a lawyer, we talked to investors sometimes, but because I was a lawyer and I was explaining the law, and upsidedownrealestate.com had, if they looked at, they would have found it. It was one of the top ranking sites in the country for these things for a while. And, sometimes I said, hey, look, California Association of Realtors has had me train realtors on how to negotiate short sales. I'm telling you, as an experienced practitioner, as an investor, you'd be foolish not to take this deal now. And all the reasons why. And so we did get it done sometimes. It's far from guaranteed, but if you're concerned, here, let me pull the rule up. If you're concerned about producing your assets, and small business people, why would you want the banks, anyone to know about your assets and how it's working, right? So if you're one of those people, you probably don't want to do a short sale with a realtor, because they aren't going to be able to leverage the law properly, get people on the other side to believe them. Frequently, we had to go to the legal departments. I remember the first few times I did it, and other realtors who did a lot of work, but like with a Countrywide, they had a special department where the woman on the phone says, I'm literally next to the president's office. And I go in and talk to him. She goes, I'm on the president's committee. She may have been exaggerating, but she told us all my deals were going to be handled by her or her office. It was her in the beginning. And this happened at other banks. And I'm not saying I was the only person to ever get that done. I talked to other experienced people who've done a lot of deals. They had deals done too. But my favorite deals were when we got to the lawyers. And then, well, you don't need all the stories. Well, let's go to 580E now. So 580E, this is what the realtors rely on, and it's good. But it's not like it happens automatically with lenders from out of state. But the reality is the law says what the realtors are telling you. No deficiency, and not that they should be because they're not lawyers. And if you read the short sale listing addendums, they're not supposed to talk about taxes. They're not supposed to talk about whether you're going to owe the bank money. The California Association of Realtors says multiple times talk to an attorney, and there's reasons for that. No deficiency shall be owed or collected, and no deficiency judgment shall be requested or rendered for any deficiency that's the difference between what you owe and what the bank's getting paid upon a note secured solely by a deed of trust or mortgage for a dwelling of not more than 4 units in any case where the trustor, that would be you, or mortgagor, that would be you, sells the dwelling for a sale price less than the remaining amount of indebtedness. In other words, a short. The bank is the revenues they bring in are short of the revenues they lent out or what are still owed. So they're coming up short. Title has voluntarily. This is just part of the short sale. Like the buyer wasn't coerced into. They're trying to get around the scams. So they're saying you can't transfer this to a scam buyer, investor, or cheater. It's voluntarily transferred, and that's what I believe it's saying. And the proceeds of the sale have been tendered to the mortgagee. In other words, the bank's getting paid. Now, this is important. Banks still do that, especially out-of-state ones. I've heard so many great reasons over the years that some of them make me laugh. They're like, I'm not controlled by California law. We lent, this state. I'm like, well, that's not really how the law works. But I had great debates with these collection people. A holder of a note shall not require you, the trustor or mortgagor, or maker of the note, to pay any additional compensation aside from the proceeds of the sale in exchange for written consent for the sale. I'm telling you, and I'm sure it will still happen, many, many, many times seconds, and sometimes firsts, and especially not the major banks or collection departments, not part of the major banks like the outside ones, we just wouldn't do the deal without the client either signing a note for 20,000 or 10, or bringing money to the table, or all sorts of things. I don't want to go over all of them. The point is that they're not allowed to do it, but they sometimes do it anyway. And your realtor needs to be prepared for those eventualities. It's like that's why less than 50% of realtor negotiated short sales go through. They haven't done the groundwork and the preparation and how to leverage the law and get this done the way the client wants to do it. And they'll sit there and go, well, we're not supposed to do it. And sometimes your clients is like, I don't have 20 grand. And like, I was saving that to move on with my life. I'll take a foreclosure. Like I read it, and that's right. When my clients are well-educated, sometimes they're like, I will take a foreclosure. I don't have to worry about taxes. I don't have to worry about the deficiency. I'm not coming to the table at 20. And then sometimes they come back. So like you have to know and have a plan. And, sometimes I'd say, look, these people aren't ready to work with you. Let's reinstate. So my clients had assets or had a job. I'm like, I think you want to reinstate now. You took a credit hit. We'll go work towards fixing that. But this isn't working out the way you want. You might still be on the hook for the deficiency. I'm glad you saved your money. Let's try to get a loan mod or some sort of payment plan. Sometimes they get back in for less than everything they were behind and they tack it on the back, but they were ready to go. So you need to be prepared for all eventualities. So now here's the thing that I really wanted to get to. This is the scary one. If you are lying in your package or you fudged in the past, you're giving your asset picture to a collection company. And I was sensing, and I'll bet now, that the lenders were getting tired of the fraud and they did want to start pursuing people. Another problem with this is if you don't get the words that you want on these closing documents, on the approval letters that sometimes the banks have you sign, you could be like these zombie people now 10 or 15 years later. Someone buys up pennies on the dollar and they become a pain in the neck. I guarantee you they'll be arguing fraud in the future. So you want to do this airtight. I'd say find a way to get this done without. We've got so many good laws. The ability to delay a foreclosure is now virtually double if you time it the right way, if you sequence it correctly, over what we used to have. These banks and these negotiators are going to have a fiduciary duty to explain this to their investor. I will get on the line and write letters to them and say, we're going to bring this to your investor that I think you're violating your fiduciary duty not accepting this deal because your investor is going to wind up with $150,000 less a long time from now and get this deal done now. So like you're going to have to do that sometimes. There's so much about negotiating a short sale that we're not going to go into this video because this is just a little warm up and it's about 580 and how it works for you. But just know that getting this short sale done is probably really good. This is one of the better workout ways if you have recourse loans. Now, but in those cases, I really would want the language on the approval letter to match up with California law. But I would also say, hey, like if you're getting out, if you've got assets and you have a chance to get out for a little bit of money, like let's compare that to the risk of a sold out junior. And maybe you don't want a recourse second to be able to come after you. So maybe you never stop paying on the first. There's all sorts of loan workouts with respect to short sales. It's just not. And what a mistake is if you're going to do one of these loan workouts and the lender's not going to play ball. What a mistake for some people who are trying to rebuild their equity to not wait a year and not have to pay a mortgage for a year. I mean, I remember living in Carlsbad. I knew plenty of my neighbors weren't paying the bank and they were out eating dinner all the time. And they were saving $5-8 a month on their mortgage. They were living it well, and they got to live in their homes for a really long time. I mean, so, and I'm not saying those were my clients. I had some clients in there, but I'm not talking about those people. I'm just talking about neighbors. You know, I was making the best money I ever made in my life. Then, I mean, it was like, you know, I had weeks that were $40,000 sometimes. And I was seeing people living, you know, we had 4 kids, but I saw people living quite well, not paying their mortgage. So, you know, they were taking credit hits, but, you know, living rent free for a year, something you have to consider. So I wouldn't, you know, I would get my plan straightened out. I would talk to me or another attorney about a strategic default walkaway plan as a backup to your short sale. I would sequence the short sale and the timing as well and best I could. I would compare if I was going to have a recourse loan. Maybe I don't want to go that deep into a deficiency. If I have a non-recourse loan, I'm not worried about the taxes and I'm not worried about the bank. I mean, who wouldn't love to not pay their mortgage for a while? I mean, if those banks worked with your lenders to get you loans, and now the lenders are undercutting you, I mean, you know, they were greedy in just a different way than they were in the last short sale crisis. I don't, you know, I can't. I'm not going to speak to the morality of it, but I certainly don't mind helping you to get even. So this is video 2 in our video series. You can go to upsidedownrealestate.com and watch the whole video series. I will probably eventually have you all of them together so you could just sign up and get it. I'm sure that Algo will eventually put them out to you, but if you want to watch the whole video series or talk to us about your options, just go to upsidedownrealestate.com. And one more thing I want to say, I should have said this in the beginning of the video. If you're a low equity seller, like let's say you only have 4 or 5% equity versus what you owe on the loan, don't do a short sale at first, like dual track. Keep the payments, you know, work with a realtor who can maybe negotiate away your buyer agent commissions and is willing to work with you on a sliding scale based on how much you net after the bank. So you're not stuck and signed on with them for a year where you have to pay them 3% to sell your home. Like work with someone who's going to reduce their commissions to help you avoid a short sale and run a short sale concurrent with an offer of a deed in lieu or a short sale so that if you can never take a late payment and you can negotiate a paid in full where they won't damage your credit. I mean, do that. I mean, why not? Right. So you can talk to us about that. We are flexible. I think this is going to happen. I think it's going to be not as big, but I think with AI, I think with taking jobs, I mean, it's not going to happen as soon as we want. ChatGPT, you know, they're probably running out of money. I was super hyped, but Gemini's gotten really good. Others are good. I think AI will be taking jobs over time. You know, Kevin O'Leary was just talking about how the Gen Xers And the Z's aren't going to be bailing baby boom. They're not going to be bailing us out with home price, these ridiculously high home prices. They don't have the income for it. So, I think this is going to go on for a long time. So I'd say start planning now and make good decisions for you and your family. And if you want help doing that, give us a call. UpsideDownRealEstate.com. Thanks. Talk to you later. Bye.